WhangāreiTim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by all his government statements and actions?
Honourable David Seymour.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, yes, particularly many practical policies that have had a lot of benefit for Māori. For example, the government has reformed the Residential Tenancies Act and taxation around residential property, which has seen lower rents. We've also seen a higher portion of homes being sold to first home buyers, with Māori housing statistics being below the New Zealand average. This is something that disproportionately benefits Māori. And education, we have seen a dramatic increase of standards thanks to our Minister of Education introducing the Science of Learning, which has seen the number of young students at or above the standard for reading and writing nearly double in only 2 years. And then there are charter schools which are being embraced by iwi Māori up and down the motu.
What aid and assistance, if any, has been given to Everly Wiihongi, who has been detained by the United States Immigration Customs Enforcement for over a month without any charges?
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade are very aware of Ms Wiihongi's situation. They are engaged with the American authorities and will continue to work with them to ascertain all of the facts and present the New Zealand government's view. I don't think it would be helpful for me to say in the House any more than that.
What is his response to Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters when he made false accusations about Everly Wiihongi, blaming her for being detained? And will the Prime Minister require him to correct the record?
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, I don't believe the member is in a position to know that the accusations are false. If he does, the right thing to do would be to talk with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, because it sounds as though he may have information that would be helpful to Ms Wiihongi rather than grandstanding in the House about it.
Will he strongly condemn Everly's treatment by ICE when her whānau have stated that she has been shackled for hours, waiting in hot weather, being deprived of food, sleeping on the ground and not being able to shower?
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, as I've said earlier, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade are in contact with the American authorities. They seek to establish the facts, and they will present New Zealand's position in line with our values as a country. Those complaints are best presented to the Minister of Foreign Affairs so that MFAT can use them in order to best serve her as a New Zealand citizen. I don't believe that it is useful to try and politicise the issue, which is obviously very sensitive for her.
What penalties can the government impose on the United States if they continue to abuse New Zealand citizens and other immigrants in ICE detention centres?
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, we generally don't think of ourselves as penalising other countries. Nonetheless, where we believe that there has been a breach of our understandings between countries, we ensure that we are doing the best to represent New Zealand's position on the world stage behind closed doors and openly. And I think our Minister of Foreign Affairs has had a good couple of years of doing that after we were nearly invisible on the world stage under his predecessor.
Will he commit to doing everything in his power to ensure that Everly Wiihongi...
No talking at all while someone is asking a question.
Will he commit to doing everything in his power to ensure that Everly Wiihongi and all New Zealand citizens detained by ICE are treated humanely and released as soon as possible?
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, that is exactly what the New Zealand Government is doing through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. This is the answer I gave to my first question, and my advice, if he wants it to the member, would be to try and vary his questions in relation to the answers he's received. He might find out more.
The Right Honourable Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Prime Minister, does he stand by all of his government statements and actions?
Mr
Honourable
Speaker,
David Seymour.
on behalf of the Prime Minister, yes, exactly I do, and particularly the government's announcement today that we will be keeping to a new operating allowance of $2.1 billion. The government making careful use of taxpayers' money and gradually driving down the proportion of the economy that's consumed by government leaves New Zealanders in a stronger position to weather the storms of trade wars and actual wars that have affected us in the last 2 years. The alternative is a government that has a long history of blowing out the credit card, leaving New Zealanders with very few options except for high inflation and high interest rates. And now they're not even doing that, they're just producing lame TikTok videos.
Supplementary. To the Prime Minister, does he agree with Winston Peters that his own government is attempting to, quote, write a budget out of the New Zealand Superannuation Fund because of their failed economic policies?
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, the government is not attempting to write a budget out of the superannuation fund because the government budget is not changing superannuation policy as is agreed between our parties, and this is the difference. 3 parties work together and produce not just careful use of taxpayer money, but actually manage to save more than we initially thought we could. And the Labor Party laughs at this because for them it's all about the game. For us, it's about New Zealanders' lives affected by inflation and interest rates from too many turkeys spending too much of their money. On this side, we take careful use of taxpayer money and balancing the budget without new taxes very seriously, and he ought to too.
Supplementary question. So why did the third-ranked minister in his own government tell the New Zealand public just this morning that the government was going to be raiding the New Zealand Superannuation Fund in order to prop up its budget?
Mr Speaker, I can only guess that he was alluding to future policy positions that parties might take. And it's a good question for the Labor Party. Show us the money. How are they going to pay for the pay equity and the superannuation and the fees free and all those cheques that they're writing out that their body can't cash?
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. So will the government be drawing down? Will the government be drawing down on the New Zealand Superannuation Fund in this year's budget?
Mr Speaker, no.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Will the government guarantee that it will not be using in this year's budget any funds from the New Zealand Superannuation Fund for anything other than their legislated purpose?
Mr Speaker, I can absolutely confirm that the government will follow the law. And the reason for that is very important. You see, we had a government that didn't follow the law. They took $30 million to buy out Ihu Mātou and created a steaming pile of that member knows just what that this government is still trying to fix after they misappropriated funds and didn't follow the law.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. So what was Winston Peters referring to when he said that the government was going to be attempting to write its budget out of the New Zealand Superannuation Fund?
Mr Speaker, I think we're having either a communication or a memory problem here. As I said earlier, I can only guess that he is referring to positions that parties might take in the future, and one of the parties I like him referring to is the many positions that the Labor Party takes on its fiscal management.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. If he thinks the Minister of Foreign Affairs has a memory problem and Nicola Willis thinks the Minister of Foreign Affairs is very confused, why should New Zealanders believe that he's a fit person to be a minister?
Mr Speaker, I wasn't referring to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. You see, the member asking the question may have himself forgot that I'd answered his question only seconds earlier.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. If the Minister of Foreign Affairs in his own government thinks that the government's economic policies are failing, why should New Zealanders think any differently, given that under his leadership the economy has shrunk, more New Zealanders have lost their jobs, the cost of living's gotten worse, inflation's going up, and mortgage interest rates are going back up again as well?
Right. We might just, you might just like to put that question again without all the suppositions at the end, which are outside the parameters.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Right Honourable Chris Hipkins.
Mr Speaker, I welcome your newfound sticklerness for the standing orders and the Speaker's rulings. But if that is going to apply to the questions, why doesn't it apply to the answers that are being delivered?
It does apply to the answers. And
so how is it in order for him to spend all of his time attacking us?
Not a good day. Not a good day to have an argument. So ask the question again.
If his own Minister of Foreign Affairs thinks that his government are pursuing failed economic policies that have seen the economy shrink, unemployment increase, interest rates going back up, inflation going back up, and more New Zealanders losing their jobs, why should New Zealanders think any differently?
Oh, Mr Speaker, they're spicy today. First of all, mortgage rates going back up. Now that's an interesting concept, isn't it? Because they can only go back up to the place they were when he was in government. So what he's conceding is that they have come down dramatically for Kiwis under this government, as has inflation, which peaked at 7.3%. We've got it down to 5.3%, and even unemployment has just gone down slightly in the last quarter. So there are many, many reasons why people might trust in the economic management of this government. Three parties united behind a careful, fiscally responsible budget that gives New Zealanders a much better future than they would if Mr Marmite Sandwich with his TikTok memes was in charge with the company credit card again.
Question number 4, Chloe Swarbrick.
Ki te Premier, e tautoko ana ia I ngā kōrero me ngā mahi katoa a tōna kāwanatanga.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable David Seymour.
On behalf of the Acting Prime Minister, yes, and I'd particularly like to highlight the Honourable Andrew Hoggard's recent announcement that the government will be endorsing a marketplace for environmental good deeds mainly done on farms. If you plant trees or save wetlands, there'll actually be a marketplace where you can be funded by those good people and in the community and in business who would like to pay for those kinds of things to happen somewhere in the country because they care about the environment. It's a very good example of a practical approach from practical people ensuring that all of us can be better environmental custodians. I highlight this because the Green Party aren't always focused on environmental matters and may have missed it.
That's enough.
Does he accept that the government's forecasted deficit is now smaller because of the large profits paid out in dividends made by government majority-owned power companies?
Mr Speaker, it is, on behalf of the Prime Minister, it is certainly true that the ownership of state-owned enterprises sometimes, but not always, delivers dividends that improve the government's financial position. However, I have seen suggestions that would ensure that that almost never happens. I have seen suggestions that energy companies should somehow limit the price of the energy that they sell to the rate of inflation. Now, let's just think about how that works for a moment. The price they sell it at is set in a uniform auction at the price of the highest bidder in the electricity market every half an hour. In order for them to limit the price they sell energy, every single participant in the electricity market in New Zealand would need to collude and breach the Commerce Act to achieve that. Now, the reason I say this, Mr Speaker, is that I happen to be Parliament's only electrical engineer, and I know a little bit about it. On the other hand, there are people who listen to their focus groups and decide people don't like electricity prices, I will wish them down.
Just shorten up the answers a little bit.
Does the Acting Prime Minister understand the difference between wholesale and retail power markets?
Mr Speaker, thank you for that invitation. Yes, I do. And you see, the thing is that there are actually three costs. There's your energy cost, there's your lines cost, and there is your retail cost. And the thing about retail is that you are beholden to the price of the energy that you buy. if the suggestion is that somehow retailers should charge nothing or perhaps even pay people to take electricity by selling it for less than they can buy it on the wholesale market, well, that's a very interesting bit of bumper sticker politics, but I don't think it's going to work. And what I'd say to the member is electricity markets are very delicate things, not best designed by focus group.
Is it fair that shareholders, including the government, are collecting near record dividends from power companies while 200,000 New Zealanders cannot afford to heat their homes?
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, the question is not whether it's fair, but what can be done about it. And what is being done about it to improve everyone's situation is a record level of generation a record level of investment in generation, the highest since the 1970s and 80s under Think Big. But it's been done without a cent of taxpayer money. Now, the one thing that could really bugger that up is if someone came in and put price controls on the electricity market and made sure that nobody wanted to invest, just like that member helped do with the oil and gas market.
Do government-owned or government majority-owned gentailers have the power to reduce their prices immediately or not?
Mr. Speaker, this is a bit of a theme. I give answers and then they ask questions that I've already answered. The reason is that in order for one participant in an energy market to reduce the price, they would have to collude with every other market participant to bring the energy price down. Now that is, first of all, illegal, and second of all, it would be a total destruction of the electricity market as New Zealand generators have known it for the last 30 years. I guess they could start selling it for a smaller margin or less than the wholesale energy price, and all the retail arms could go broke and any other retailer could go broke and we'd have no other competition. But this is a perfect example. And who was that said explaining is losing? I actually think we do need to explain to New Zealanders sometimes what we know and how these things work, rather than going into a focus group and selling bumper sticker politics in something as complex as an electricity market.
Has he seen the evidence and analysis that the partial privatisation of our power companies in 2012, despite overwhelming public opposition, has contributed to far higher power prices than would have otherwise been the case?
Mr. Speaker, that evidence brings up a certain contradiction in the member's line of questioning. You see, she started out claiming that the reason power prices are high is that the government is such a rapacious claimer of dividends boosting its bottom line that government ownership pushes up power prices. Now she's saying the fact that half of them are not owned by the government also pushes up power prices. And this is the problem, Chloe Swarbrick, when you run all your policy based on focus groups, sound bites, slogans and bumper stickers.
It's all good.